Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Call the Damn Leads, the show by sales professionals for sales professionals. I'm your host, Drew B. Wilson, with more than 2 decades in sales. I've seen it, heard about it, lived through a lot of it, and now I'm here to share those stories with you, my favorite people in the world, the sales community. Because here's the thing, if you've been in sales for any length of time, you've had some crazy experiences, you probably have a story or two to tell, and you also realize that there's some things that we can learn from each other and share that will allow us to take our success to the next level. And what I'm really excited about in today's show is that I've always said success is a perspective. The way I see success is going to be different than what you see as success. And today's guest is someone who has specialized in creating that vision and helping you understand it at a much, much deeper level. So I'd like you to welcome my friend, Mr. Steve Gamlin. What's up, brother?
Hey there, Drewby. Happy to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Hey, well, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be here. I know that you are always out there putting in the work, calling the damn leads, as we say. But more importantly, man, I know you're truly out there serving the community and helping sales professionals find their vision. So before we get into that too much, I got to know, what's your craziest sales story?
Craziest sales story. This is back in the days of my weekend DJ business, which I did for 28 and a half years, 1,700 total events, 100% word of mouth all that time. I was, prior to Zoom and prior to, even email, I was in people's kitchens or living rooms having conversations with them, and without selling myself on being the best choice of DJ for their wedding, right down to some of the tactics of, if they said, come in and sit in the kitchen, I'd let them go first and go, you all sit where you normally sit, because the first day of DJ school, they tell us, never sit in the power seat in somebody else's kitchen. And that was one. Now, my favorite one ever, knocked on the door, and there's a dog going absolutely ballistic in the living room on the other side of the door, and they're holding it back. It's not a big dog, but it doesn't like people. They told me right up front. Our dog does not like people. If you want, we'll chuck him out in the backyard. Well, it was raining, and I said, no, leave the dog inside. Within 15 minutes, that dog is curled up next to me, belly up in the trusting position, head on my lap, snoring away. And they looked at each other and go, you're hired. We hadn't even discussed price yet. And they said, if our dog trusts you, you're the guy for our wedding. And we had a ball.
Come on.
Yes, sir.
That's
awesome the energy you bring to every interaction.
You know, what I love about that is the simplicity of the know, like, and trust factor. One of the things that's really, really important in sales, and if you've been in, any sort of training or anything, they tell you, hey, they got to know you, they got to like you, they got to trust you. And one thing I know about humans is they trust their dog's instincts more than they'll trust their own instincts a lot of time. And I love that perspective of, hey, man, even if this person was like, they didn't care. You had the trust of the dog. And if the dog didn't trust anybody else, they were like, this is the guy for us. So how did you even, 28 years of a DJ business, how did you get into understanding that mentality? Is it something that you always had, or was it something where you kind of had to develop it over, the time of your business?
I was just being myself. I mean, I've attended sales trainings over the years. I've gotten tips and tactics from people. I don't retain most of them. I just always seem to fall back to just being an extension of who I am and how I have conversations and things like that. Has it cost me sales over the years? Oh, I'm sure it has. But my number one thing is to be 100% me, on stage, off stage, backstage, walking down the street, or in the Captain Crunch aisle at the grocery store. You're going to have the same exact conversation with me in every single place. And for better or for worse, here I am 20 years into speaking and coaching, had 28 plus as a DJ, still just being the same exact person. And once in a while, a sales expert will come along and say, I could 10X your sales in a month. And I'm like, well, I would 10X not like who I am, to do, because I've seen some of the tactics that are out there. I'm like, I can't remember all the different tactics and all that. So I just show up as me, and I just front load the value, whoever I'm talking to. I just want to provide value. And if that makes me magnetic, then rock on. We can work together. That's good.
Something you said there that I think stands out and is something that I really work with when I, start working with a small business owner or an entrepreneur, and we're talking sales and we're talking processes. they're always like, I got to make more sales. I got to make more sales, or I need more leads so I can make more sales. And, here's the deal. If I were to just come in and 10x your business overnight, hey, if I can 10x your sales in 30 days, here's what's really going to happen. Everything after the fact is going to break. Because most entrepreneurs, sales professionals, business owners, if I handed you 100 clients or 10x whatever your number of clients per month is right now, everything that you have would break. You're not ready for that. You don't have the systems. You don't have the people. You don't have the processes. So I appreciate where your mentality is, hey, I'm going to be me. I'm going to do what works. I'm going to do what works for me. And if I hear something that I think might be of value, I'm going to try it a little at a time, see what works, and then adjust accordingly. And I know that really comes from you dialing in on your whole process of vision. And I want to explore that because it's something that I think is really, really powerful for sales professionals and entrepreneurs and anyone in general, but specifically sales professionals, because in this industry, there's a lot of gurus. I'm not your typical sales guru. I'm kind of different. I got Meme Lord tattooed on my knuckles, for crying out loud. So I'm not going to be your suit and tie sales trainer. However, sales and success is a perspective. So how have you dialed in on that vision process, and what, maybe some tips that we can share with some folks who are listening that, may be able to benefit from it?
Yeah, just like you're disrupting the sales and sales tactics and trainings, I'm doing the same thing with regard to visualization. I am not the vision board party arts and crafts woo-woo mystical guy. I call how I do what I do blue collar woo, which means I'm going to give you a schematic and an outline and some steps. We're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to grab the tools and get to work together. And we're actually going to build something. And the biggest thing I'd say to people is, look, if your vision board is a Lamborghini, a yacht, a mansion, a private jet, a helicopter, a big honking gold watch, and a bank vault full of gold bars, that's fine. It's more of a letter to Santa Claus. When it comes to visualization, here's the big thing for me. It's not just what you get, it's who you become. And I work with people in sales and in any industry, 8 major areas of life. We do it in a life wheel, pretty standard tool out there. Now I've tweaked it to the way that I teach. We're talking goals, not just your money, but your physical health, your emotional well-being. Imagine that, setting goals for the emotions you want to feel on an everyday basis. Your closest relationships, your core values that guide every thought, every word, and every action you put out there. Your faith and spirituality, if that's important to you, which kind of does the same, but it comes from a different direction. Your connection to the world in a real way, and then your work and your money. All 8 of these areas are working together 24/7, whether or not you're paying attention. So wouldn't it be a good idea to have a sense of where you want your life to be? And I start off with 1-year goals. Have a sense of where you want your life to be in each one of those in 1 year. But you have to understand 100% clarity where you are in every single one of them right now. That's your point A. Then determine your point B. If you got 20-year goals, that's great. What is 1 year's worth of progress toward that 20-year goal? In so many people, it's just the money, the grind. Nothing wrong with grinding, but know why you're doing it and know what you expect on the other side of that and who you want to be, not just what you want to get, who you want to become. I'm going to be 56 years old in 2024. This is the happiest version of me there's ever been. And in many ways, the most successful, because more of those 8 areas are double or triple where they were 20 years ago when my life was completely, basically, and I'm going to throw an old cartoon reference out there. I pulled a Wile E. Coyote putting on the Acme rocket roller skates and drove my entire life off a cliff. Everything, career, marriage, financial stability, everything was gone except for core values, in faith. But everything else I threw into the dumpster 21 years ago. Put it all back together and took a lot of notes. And that's why I get to teach what I teach the way I teach it now.
And that's the thing that I love about sales. And that's what I love about life in general, right? Our vision, our version of success will be whatever we decide we want it to be and accept as the truth. Because everyone's got their opinion. Everyone, I mentioned this in my new book where I talk about, hey, your version of success is different than what you and I see of each other, right? You might see me and think, well, hey, man, I think you're going to have this, this, and this. And that could be your version of success for me, which is great. And also it may not be what I see as my version for me. And that's okay, because when you create a community and you start connecting with individuals who have a respect for this idea that, hey, man, I might want, instead of a Lambo and a Rolex, I want a motorhome and a boat, or whatever that toy might be to go out and spend time with my family, because the feeling that I'm searching for is that connectedness, is that family embrace. And that is the difference of your typical material like vision board, which is, again, very, very powerful and a tool that a lot of people will use to be motivated by, and I will subscribe to in the right situation. And yet, what if that Rolex isn't what you really want? It's the feeling of knowing you can go and buy a luxury timepiece and have all of your bills still be paid. That's a different emotion. That's a feeling that you can truly become, not just acquire. And bro, that is so, so deep. And I love that you touched on that, because again, most of the time people get into sales, they see the money, they see the flash, they see all the things that go along with that. And I personally have fallen guilty of it. I know you have as well. That's why we're so, connected, and why we understand what this truly means to share this. So when you think back to that time, 21 years ago, packing it all up in the Wile E. Coyote Acme rocket and blasting that son of a gun off. I know a lot of people who have been in sales have experienced something like this in their life, or may potentially be going through that experience right now. What were some of the things that you really stopped and focused on initially so that you could get back on that rocket back to the top?
The first thing was figuring out, what the heck do I want to do with my life? Because I basically had banked it all on being in radio, and then having at the time an $11,000 a year weekend DJ business, which I started to pick up more bookings. I picked up an agent. So that went from $11,500 a year to, at one point, over $60,000 a year just working on the weekends. So that picked up. But that's not what I wanted to do forever. And in August of 2003, very frustrated with myself, very down, very venomous with regard to my self-talk. On a hot August afternoon, I went and spent $3 and a big bucket of golf balls at a driving range and just whacked the crap out of my frustrations to get them out. Well, I was at the farthest tee box on the property, underneath power lines, and a thunderstorm came ripping through, and everybody but me ran from the storm. And I was so self-loathing, I just held up the club at one point and said, "Go ahead, I dare you. Take me out. I don't care." I finished my bucket and the buckets of two other guys, and I'm soaked, and I'm in barefoot in the wet grass under power lines, hitting golf balls. And the next day, I'm on the phone with a brand new life coach I just started working with, and he says, "How was your week?" And I said, "Dude, put down your pen and check this out." And I told him the story, and I made it as funny as I could. And he asked this question: "Have you ever thought of being a motivational speaker or a stand-up comedian? I think you'd be really good at both." What he didn't know, when I was 11 years old, I wanted to be a radio DJ, an author of my own books. My first one was about to come out at that point. A teacher of people and a stand-up comedian. Hadn't thought about the other two in forever until he asked that question. And all of a sudden I went, I can see myself doing this, and I can sell myself credibility-wise doing this. And I was terrible at both when I first started. Did stand-up for 7 years. Wound up on bills and shows I probably had no business being on. But I just kept working so hard at it. And I let my energy and charisma and confidence, as little as there was at first, sell me and get me in those doors and on these stages where I still get to speak today. And it was all that little tiny bit of belief that someone else had it in me first, and then I started to have it. And right around 2011, a buddy of mine heard me kind of melt down self-deprecatingly on stage, and he intervened on me afterward and said, "Bro, if I ever hear you talk about yourself like that again, you're not welcome on my stage. Knock it off." That was when that whole shift happened. And as soon as I stopped talking myself down, which hurt sales, and started being more confident in what I could deliver, I started getting booked more.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I talk about in the book that I got coming out myself is about confidence, right? That confidence in yourself is what allows you to be confident when you make sales. Because here's the deal. If we walk into a transaction and I'm looking at you and you're self-loathing and you kind of got like this "I give a fuck" attitude, well, hey man, I can't really trust that you're going to give a fuck about the thing that I need you to do to help me get the problem I'm trying to solved. And so that truly comes across, and whether you believe that people can see it or read it or not, the fact is, at this point, especially in 2024, people got a BS meter that's on tune. They can see it. They know it. They know what's going on. And even with all the shit that happened in the last couple of years, there's still an extreme level of tuned-indedness. I don't know what the proper term would that be. It doesn't matter. But people
if
can
you throw
see,
enough
man,
hyphens in it, it's perfect.
Exactly. There's about 96 hyphens in tuned in-ness. But the point is, people know, man, and they are tuned into the vibe and they're understanding and they can read that. And what I love about how you approach sales and entrepreneurship, Steve, is that you're here to help. And that's one of the biggest. It's funny when I talk about sales and techniques and strategies, and I've done probably 30 episodes already at this point. People always say it's not the script, it's not the closing line. You know what works? Serving people, helping people. And Steve, man, you are just an absolutely phenomenal version of that. And again, someone who has taken that step to say, well, hey, I'm going to go and write a book. I'm going to go and speak on stage. I'm going to do all of these things that a large majority of the world talks about when they're young, and then lets everybody else's lack of confidence intervene and keep them from accomplishing that greatness in their life. So what was that like for you going through and putting out a book and getting on stages in front of people? Because I know there's some folks out here listening that are like, man, I've got a story. I'd like to write a book. I'd like to get on a stage and tell that. How did you really start just getting out there and making that happen?
It's funny. The first book was, I've got 4 books now, 3 of them in personal development. The first book was actually about being a wedding DJ, because I used to sit there and have conversations with people and they get all the fears and all the nerves and all that. And I'd say, hey, kick back a second. Let me tell you some of the stories of things that have happened to me. And every story has a happy ending, mostly because of the choice of attitude and my confidence in delivering that bride and groom to a successful outcome. So I would tell these stories. Literally 3 brides in 1 week told me over the phone, my gosh, you should write those down and make a book. No one had ever said it before. 3 of them in 1 week. So I thought about it and I said, okay, I get all these stories. I started to write them down. As I'm telling other DJs, yeah, I'm writing a book about this. They go, oh, I got better stories. I should write a book too. I did a search recently. No other DJ, at least as far as, on the internet and searchable, no other DJ has ever put together a book of stories of things they've survived over the years. It became my greatest sales tool. I used to have conversations with brides and say, oh, hey, I got a little something I want to send you. What's your address? And I would mail it to them and they would hire me almost automatically every time I sent the book. The books cost me like $1.75 to produce. It was called Table 7, Your Centerpiece is on Fire. Just short stories of things that I'd survived over the years. And that did happen. It became this amazing tool. And it would still be working if I had continued the business. Just during COVID, I honored all my events and then I shut that down because I actually enjoyed spending time home with my wife, Tina, on the weekends.
And one thing I know about you is that not only do you enjoy spending time at home with your beautiful wife, Tina, but you love playing with hot, smoky balls and doing good in your community and taking those meatballs out to the shelter where you spend an enormous amount of time giving back and doing right for the folks in your community, man. Steve, this is by far one of the greatest things about you is that we can literally go on and send each other pictures and be like, hey, man, look at my meat. And it's not inappropriate. It's HR approved. And everything about it is as wholesome as it can be. And that's one of the things I really love about you, Steve, is knowing that, again, going back to service and doing right for the people around you, that is your whole mission in life. I've witnessed it. I've experienced it personally where you've taken time to not only be here on this show, but have conversations about me and my vision and where things are growing. And man, I just know that anyone who's listened to this, if they're paying attention, they've got everything they need to go and shift their vision and truly hone in on what they can do to be successful. And if they were paying real close attention, they learned a little lead generation tool that could help them close a whole lot more sales, putting out a little book action. Steve, man, that's so genius. You are a man ahead of his time and yet also a man blessed with vision. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Let's say they're listening. They like what you're putting down. How can they come learn about what you do and how you bring more from the vision perspective and get some more tips and tricks on that process from you?
Super easy. If you go to visionboardspecial.com, that goes to my website, and there's access to a free video there as well called Visualize in 5, the 5 most basic steps of how to approach visualization the way I teach it, which I believe is the most in-depth way out there.
I love that, man. And before we get out of here, there's always one thing I'd like to ask. There's several new sales professionals entering the industry every single day. My goal is that this show lands in front of at least one of them so that we can make a massive impact on their life. If you could give that listener just one piece of advice on how to be successful in their new sales adventure, what would you tell them?
Goes back to a lesson I learned by observing one of my grandfathers. Leave at least one situation a day, every day, better than you find it.
Steve, that is beautiful, man. I appreciate you so much for being here with us. I appreciate you for being you and for bringing such amazing vision to our community, sir. If you guys like this, if you got value, not only should you go follow Steve and check out his vision board setup, you should also hit subscribe, tag us on social media, share this with somebody that needs to hear it. Let the world know that if you're in sales, you're not alone, and there's some amazing stories out there to be told and to be heard. That's why this show exists. So if you've got an amazing story, I'd like to tell it. Go over to callthedamnleads.com/podcast. Send us your story. Send us your information. Let's set up a time to chat. I'd love to bring you on the show, and we'll see you guys on the next one. As always, go call the damn leads.